My name is Kate Cochran. I'm the CEO of Upaya Social Ventures. Today, I'd like to talk about ending poverty in our lifetimes. We live in a time of remarkable abundance. Technology and productivity increases have removed drudgery and improved the lives of hundreds of millions of people. The average standard of living of the residents of planet Earth has never been higher. If you look at the population as a whole, we have cut the percentage of people living in poverty from nearly everyone, 94% in 1820, to a very small minority, 10% in 2015. When we started this year, 2020, the most common estimate was that about 700 million people lived on less than $2 a day. That's about 10% of the world's population. Certainly better than 94%, and trending toward the Sustainable Development Goal of 3% by 2030. These are numbers to celebrate. We should celebrate this progress, but that doesn't mean that we are done fighting poverty. And with the impact of COVID-19, we are watching these gains erased day by day. No one knows exactly what the effect of COVID-19 will be on extreme poverty. This report by the Brookings Institute estimates 50 million people will slide back into extreme poverty by the end of the year. It is one of the most optimistic estimates I've heard. Even the report acknowledges that estimates that are much, much higher, perhaps 500 million people. But in some ways, the number doesn't matter. With the wealth and ingenuity on this planet, I think it is a crime against humanity that any single person should live in this condition. The truth is, for a person who lives on less than $2 a day, every day is a challenge. Sometimes a life and death challenge. They likely live in unstable housing that does not keep them dry in the wet season, which leads their family to be prone to illness, which they cannot afford to treat. Food is uncertain and unsatisfying. In fact, they probably do not actually earn $2 a day. Some days they earn $3. Some days they earn nothing. And every day is a struggle to find a way to earn anything. Probably, for me, the most heartbreaking part of extreme poverty is that this instability in a family keeps children from going to school, from getting adequate nutrition, and from being able to shape a different kind of life. This is what we talk about when we talk about generational poverty. For most of my life, I thought that poverty like this was just a sad fact of life. It'd be nice if everyone had the same opportunities, but the needs are just so great. And what could I do that would really matter? I was overwhelmed by what looked like unavoidable pain and suffering. I was wrong. As the chart I showed earlier demonstrates, we can fight extreme poverty and we can win. And it doesn't mean handouts forever. In fact, the people I have met in my work aren't looking for handouts. They're looking for opportunity. The same kinds of opportunities to earn a living and provide for their family that so many of us take for granted. I would argue that the incredible progress that we have made in fighting extreme poverty in the past 50 years has been by harnessing people's natural resourcefulness and their individual drive, helping them onto the first rung of the ladder out of poverty, and then supporting their climb, but recognizing and celebrating that they are pulling themselves up by their own two hands. The first program that really broke through with this idea, it was called Microcredit, now sometimes called microfinance. Muhammad Yunus founded something called the Grameen Bank in 1976. It was a bank for the poor, which sounds simple, doesn't it? It was a way that poor people could get very small loans to be able to purchase livestock or a piece of equipment like a sewing machine that enabled them to earn a living. As simple as that sounds, it was revolutionary. Before the Grameen Bank and a similar operation that started in Bolivia called Banco Sol, no one believed that the poor were creditworthy. And so they were stuck in poverty, unable to start even a micro enterprise to help pull their families out of poverty. This simple, revolutionary idea earned Professor Yunus the Nobel Prize in 2006. I believe he fundamentally changed the way people think about poverty. People using microcredit were not beneficiaries, people who needing help. They were clients, people engaged in a business deserving of respect. Microcredit grew from a basic lending product offered through charitable institutions to a global industry reaching hundreds of millions that offers savings and insurance as part of a movement now called financial inclusion. There is no silver bullet to solve poverty, but microfinance has provided valuable tools to a larger number of people than anything else I have seen. It inspired me to get over my original skepticism and join the fight against global poverty. But it isn't the right tool for everyone. Not everyone wants to take out a loan, and for the very, very poor, a loan can be dangerous. The uncertainty and unpredictability that I described as the natural feature of a family's life in extreme poverty make them bad candidates for loans. What people living in extreme poverty want is certainty and a reliable income. After the amazing growth of the microfinance industry, the question remained, how can you help people who are too poor for microfinance? And is there a way to do it at scale? Not just helping a few hundred people, but thousands, tens of thousands, millions of people. That is the question my organization was founded to answer. At Upaya Social Ventures, we fight extreme poverty not with loans, but with jobs. But we don't create these jobs. I want to tell you how we work because I think our model shows what is possible when you focus on providing opportunity to others and letting them shape their own lives. We don't do this work directly. If we tried, we would not reach the numbers that we need to reach. Instead, we provide opportunity to the right partners and give them the right support so they can create opportunity for others. What Upaya does is support businesses that can grow and create lasting jobs for the people in their community. We make investments in companies that are trying to get off the ground and that were founded by entrepreneurs who share our mission to create jobs for the poor. These entrepreneurs create sustainable businesses that can employ thousands of people, giving the kind of opportunity they're searching for. And because Upaya is investing in them, if they do well, we get our investment back, so we can invest in more companies. Since we were founded in 2011, we have invested in 23 companies in India, and those companies have created over 17,000 dignified and lasting jobs. That's 17,000 families experiencing the kind of stability they need to pull themselves out of extreme poverty. Or is it? It wouldn't matter if these jobs were not providing the stability and income those families need, and we don't take it on faith that they do. We ask them about what these jobs mean for them. We survey them. They are nearly doubling their income, and they are experiencing the kind of stability you can build a life from, and their children are going to school. I began this talk by admitting that I was skeptical that I could do anything about poverty. It seemed too far away, it seemed too hard, but I have seen with my own eyes what can happen when opportunity is given to those who had none. By offering dignified work and a chance to pull their families out of poverty, they can end the cycle of poverty for themselves. The end of extreme poverty is within our reach. This generation can be the one to finally ensure that everyone has a chance to earn a dignified living and pursue their dreams. Thank you very much.
Our first question today is, what sort of firsthand experiences can you cite that ignited your passion towards devoting your career towards ending the global problem of poverty?
So for me, I will admit that I came to this kind of work late-ish in my career. I was in my 30s. I hadn't spent much time in impoverished communities, and it kind of intimidated me. What happened was I was invited to a fundraiser where I heard a speaker who was an alumni of my school talk about an organization he had founded And he talked in terms of opportunity and hope instead of sadness, and also growth and sustainability, and talked about poverty in ways that I had not ever thought about it. And that just started turning my brain around. And from that one meeting, I ended up going to work for that organization and traveling, and now have spent the last 17 years meeting with people and realizing that my original conception was completely wrong. Sure, there's a lot of sadness and hardness in extreme poverty. There's also incredible resilience and inspiring grit, and that's what fuels me.
So the next question is, do you believe a microfinancing program can be nationalized by a government, or do you believe that it should stay privatized?
I think that there is a continuum of things that should be done by the government and things that should be done by the private sector and things that are done by social organizations that don't fit in either camp. In general, I think that the reason that microfinance and the financial inclusion industry has grown as large as it has been because the private sector has embraced it. Prior to private sector involvement in microfinance, it was a fairly small industry. That said, when your customers and your client base are extremely vulnerable, it is an industry that should be regulated carefully, arguably more carefully than it has been. And that, I think that the private sector does a very good job of delivering goods and services, but the government needs to be there to protect people.
So our next question is, some of the common issues that arise with microloans are high interest rates, which exacerbates poverty. How can we work around this problem in order to empower others?
Yeah, so the interest rate question is a real one, and it is one that the industry has been grappling with and needs to grapple with. Because the industry has gotten so large, there are examples all across the board. But in terms of the interest rates that sound very high to you and me, often they are the lowest interest rates that the organization can offer sustainably and keep their business open and keep it growing. And so even if they're 22% or 20%, which sounds very, very high, that might actually be worthwhile to a person who is able to buy a sewing machine with that loan. I think where, my comment before about regulation, it is important that government regulators are mindful of interest rates. I think interest rate caps can hurt industries, but I do think that higher interest rates need to be justified. Sometimes it is just because an organization, a microfinance organization, is really small and they have very few customers, they can't cover their costs. Therefore, the more the industry grows, the more interest rates have come down. That was always the argument in theory in the early years of the hypergrowth that the microfinance industry experienced, and it generally has proved true that those interest rates have come down. And that's not to say that there aren't some predatory lenders in the industry, just like we see here with payday loans.
Very interesting. So our next question is there a specific case or incident that you can recall in which you feel Upaya has personally changed someone's life?
There are many. And, I'm going to answer this from two angles. What Upaya does is we support entrepreneurs. And so our direct interaction is with an entrepreneur who is starting a company. So I'll describe one of the companies in our portfolio. It's a company called Tummel Plates, and they sell dinnerware, biodegradable dinnerware, plates and bowls and things made out of palm leaves that naturally fall in the forest. You've probably seen these plates You can buy them all over, including Whole Foods. Tomo Plates is special because the entrepreneur who started it was originally working for a nonprofit organization that was trying to help a very poor community in Northeast India. And while he had supported all these social programs coming out of the nonprofit, he saw this business opportunity and he thought, I could actually create a job, lots of jobs for these people making these plates. And he borrowed money from his family and he mortgaged his home. He personally wasn't taking any salary to get the company going. At the time that Upaya came in with a couple of other investors, and we brought a $35,000 equity investment, a relatively small amount of money. But that helped him grow this company to a place where earlier this year, he reached 4,500 jobs created with this company. He's selling to Europe, he's selling to Australia. So that is the direct impact that we have on an entrepreneur and the company that he can create. But of the then 17,000 jobs created by our portfolio, we survey them, we talk to them, or a statistically valid sample to know that they are getting out of poverty, that they're earning more money. And I could tell many stories of, especially women who had been economically dependent on their husbands, sometimes in not very good situations, who were able to use these jobs to get independence and sometimes to move out and be in a place of safety.
So our final question is, your story is one of how anyone can truly make a change when they passionately feel about a global issue. If you had to give one piece of advice to those who feel like they can't do anything about global issues, what would you say?
So this isn't original, but it just bears repeating. Every movement in the world, every social change has started with one person. If you think that you are only one person who can't actually make a difference, think of all of the ways the world has shifted because of one person. But even more than that, if you're seeing a problem, probably other people are as well. And by gathering together and joining forces, your voices get louder, your creativity is amplified. So the only way that you can be sure that you are not going to do anything and not make any changes is by not doing anything. You've just got to try. Get out there.